The number of primary schools stretched beyond their capacity limits has risen by a third in a decade, despite promises that new schools would help to tackle overcrowding. Since 2009, hundreds of schools have closed across the country, with 200 fewer schools overall now than there were a decade ago. Dozens of schools, the majority of them primaries, are now having to accommodate more than the maximum number of pupils they were designed for, with some teachers having to use reading rooms, family rooms and Portakabins as routine classroom alternatives. In some cases, schools are bulging with up to 42% more children than they are meant to accommodate, sparking concerns over the impact on their safety and standard of education they receive. Critics have accused the Scottish Government of failing on education and said children are being crammed in like sardines. Beatrice Wishart, the Liberal Democrats' spokeswoman for education, said the data showed that education was not a priority for Nicola Sturgeon's government, and added, "It's a far cry from fostering an environment that's conducive to learning." While the number of overcapacity secondary schools has reduced in the last 10 years, from 42 in 2009 to 23 in 2018-19, the number of primaries schools has risen, with 111 primaries now catering for 100% or more of the pupils they were designed for, compared with 83 in 2009. Analysis of the latest education statistics published by the Scottish Government show the number of P13 children in classes with 18 or fewer students has also fallen in the last decade. This is despite the government's goal of reducing class sizes for youngsters in the first 3 years of primary to 18 pupils or less. In 2009, 16.1% of students in their first 3 years of education were being taught in classes with up to 18 pupils, but last year, it was just 12.3% of P13 students. In 2018, South Morningside Primary in Edinburgh had one teacher for 34 P1 children. Shetland MSP Wishart said, "Schools across the country are under-resourced and in some cases children are packed in like sardines." The number of pupils being taught in supersize classes has soared on the SNP's watch, while some buildings simply aren't designed to cope with the numbers of children they are accommodating. This is the case in primary schools especially, where some large primary schools are in the region of 40% overcapacity. It's a far cry from fostering an environment that's conducive to learning, and bigger classes make it harder to close the attainment gap. Education is supposed to be the Scottish Government's #1 priority, but few people believe that anymore. Teachers Union ICE has also raised concerns about overstretched schools, and said it was unacceptable that children and teachers were being forced to work and sue. For more on this story, visit the news article link.